The hotel ballroom buzzed with polished conversations and the soft clink of champagne glasses. My wife squeezed my hand as we entered, her eyes scanning the crowd of colleagues who'd become familiar names over dinner conversations during the past 3 years. This was her world, the annual company celebration where achievements were recognized and hierarchies were subtly reinforced. "There's my team," she said, gesturing toward a cluster near the bar. "Ready to meet everyone." I smiled and nodded, adjusting my simple navy suit. I'd deliberately dressed down for the occasion, knowing these events could be intimidating for spouses. My wife looked stunning in her emerald dress, the one she'd spent weeks selecting. She deserved to shine tonight. Her project had just secured a multi-million-dollar client, though she'd downplayed her role with characteristic modesty. As we approached her colleagues, a tall man with silver-touched temples and an expensive watch detached himself from another group. His suit probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and he wore it with the confidence of someone who knew it. "Ah, there's our star performer," he announced loudly, drawing attention. This had to be Richard Thornton, the regional director my wife had mentioned, brilliant at sales, less brilliant at humility. "And you must be the husband we've heard absolutely nothing about." The nearby conversations faltered. My wife's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Honey, this is Mr. Thornton, the regional director," she said diplomatically. I extended my hand. "Pleasure to meet you. I've heard great things about the team's performance this quarter." His handshake was aggressively firm, the kind meant to establish dominance. "So what do you do, Mr.?" "I work in investments," I replied simply. It wasn't a lie, just incomplete. "Investments," Thornton repeated, his tone making it sound quaint. "How nice. Stocks and bonds, I imagine? Or are you one of those crypto enthusiasts?" He laughed at his own joke, and a few nervous chuckles echoed around us. "Something like that," I said evenly. My wife's colleague Sarah jumped in, trying to ease the tension. "We were just talking about the merger announcement. It's so exciting that the parent company is taking a more active role in our division." Thornton waved dismissively. "Corporate oversight. Just means more people looking over our shoulders, questioning decisions made by those of us actually in the trenches." He turned back to me with a patronizing smile. "But you wouldn't understand the complexities of corporate management, would you? No offense, but investments, unless you're running a major fund, it's mostly just watching numbers, isn't it?" I felt my wife tense beside me. Several team members had gone quiet, embarrassed by their boss's behavior. "I suppose there's a lot of observation involved," I conceded. "Understanding how organizations function, where value is created, identifying leadership potential." "Theory versus practice," Thornton declared, warming to his theme. He'd clearly had a few drinks. "I could read every business book ever written, but it wouldn't teach me what I've learned building relationships, closing deals, managing teams. Real work. Ground-level work." "Richard," my wife interjected gently, "maybe we should." No, it's fine," Thornton interrupted, his hand moving to rest on her shoulder in what he probably thought was a friendly gesture. It lasted a second too long. "Your husband seems like a smart guy. I'm sure he appreciates honest conversation. Tell me," he addressed me again, "what would you say is your biggest professional achievement?" The question was designed to diminish. Whatever I said would be measured against his obvious success and found wanting. "I helped build something sustainable," I said carefully. "Creating structures that allow talented people to thrive." "Vague," Thornton pronounced, as if judging a presentation. "See, that's the difference between doing and whatever it is you do. Last quarter, I personally closed the Henderson account, $15 million over 3 years. That's concrete. That's measurable." He squeezed my wife's shoulder again. "Of course, your brilliant wife here did most of the technical work. I just sealed the deal." My wife's face flushed. I knew how hard she'd worked on Henderson, the late nights, the innovative solutions she'd developed. And here was Thornton, casually claiming credit in front of her spouse, his hand still possessively on her shoulder. The evening, I realized, was going to be very interesting. Dinner was an exercise in restraint. Thornton had somehow maneuvered the seating so my wife was at his table, front and center, while I'd been placed at the periphery with other spouses and junior staff. I didn't mind. It gave me perspective on the room's dynamics. From my seat, I watched Thornton hold court, his voice carrying across the ballroom as he told stories that always positioned him as the hero. My wife laughed politely at appropriate moments, but I could read the subtle signs of her discomfort, the way she angled her body slightly away from him, how her smile never quite reached her eyes. "Your first time at one of these?" asked the woman beside me, someone's wife whose name I'd already forgotten in the shuffle of introductions. "Yes. Quite an event." "Mr. Thornton certainly knows how to make an impression," she said diplomatically. "Though between you and me, my husband says he's not very popular with the staff. Takes credit, passes blame. You know the type." I did indeed. After dinner, Thornton stood for his annual speech, a rambling affair about excellence, dedication, and the Thornton team philosophy. He made a show of recognizing various employees, though notably, my wife's contributions to the Henderson account was summarized as excellent support work. Then came the part my wife had warned me about, Thornton's infamous trivia challenge. "Now for our traditional brain teaser competition," Thornton announced, clearly delighted with himself. "Test your knowledge, win some prizes, and prove you're not just another pretty face in the corporate world." His eyes swept the room and landed on me. "In fact, why don't we make this interesting? How about our guest participants? You there," he pointed directly at me, "husband of our resident tech genius. Care to represent the spouse's table?" The room went silent. This was clearly not traditional. My wife's expression shifted to concern. She knew what Thornton was doing, setting me up for public humiliation, asserting his intellectual dominance on his home turf. "I'm not sure that's," she started. "Oh, come now," Thornton interrupted. "It's all in good fun. Unless your husband isn't confident in his knowledge base? I promise I'll keep the questions general. Basic business knowledge, current events, maybe some culture. Nothing too challenging." The trap was elegant. Decline and appear intimidated or insecure. Accept and risk being made a fool. Either way, Thornton won. I stood slowly. "Sure. Why not?" Thornton's smile widened. "Excellent. Tell you what, I'll ask 5 questions. Get 3 right, and you win, let's say, bragging rights. Get 3 wrong, and you have to admit that maybe real-world experience trumps theoretical knowledge. Fair?" "Seems reasonable," I agreed, walking toward the front of the room. The questions started simple: current stock market trends, recent tech innovations, basic geography. I answered each correctly but without elaboration, keeping my responses measured. Thornton's confidence began showing cracks. "Lucky guesses," he muttered, loud enough for the front tables to hear. "All right, let's get more specific. Question 4. What's the name of the parent company that owns this organization?" "Meridian Holdings," I replied immediately. "And who founded Meridian Holdings?" "That's question 6, I pointed out mildly. We agreed on 5. Laughter rippled through the room. Thornton's face reddened. "Just curious if you know your wife's corporate lineage," he said tightly. "Do you?" "James and Catherine Hartwell founded it 32 years ago," I said. "Started as a venture capital firm, evolved into a private equity group with controlling interests in 17 companies across 6 industries. Current portfolio value approximately $8.3 billion, though that fluctuates with market conditions." The room had gone very quiet. That level of detail wasn't common knowledge. Thornton recovered quickly. "Well, someone's been doing his homework. Trying to impress the wife's colleagues." His tone had an edge now. "Tell me, since you're so knowledgeable, what do you think of Meridian's management strategy? Their recent decision to increase oversight on underperforming divisions." This was dangerous territory. He was asking me to criticize the parent company, potentially embarrassing my wife by association. "I think," I said carefully, "that Meridian's leadership has always prioritized long-term sustainability over short-term gains. When they increase oversight, it's usually because they see potential being squandered. They tend to identify where individual ambition has overshadowed team success or where credit is being misallocated. My wife's eyes widened slightly. A few of her colleagues exchanged glances. Thornton's jaw tightened. That sounds like corporate speak for micromanagement. Those of us in the field know that excessive oversight stifles innovation and... Mr. Thornton. A server had appeared at his elbow, looking apologetic. Sorry to interrupt, but there's been a change. The CEO's office just called. Apparently some executives from Meridian Holdings have arrived unexpectedly. They're asking to speak with you immediately. The blood drained from Thornton's face. What? They're here. Now? I wasn't informed of any, he caught himself, aware of his audience. Of course. Where are they? The executive lounge, sir. Thornton straightened his tie, his earlier bravado evaporating into barely concealed panic. Surprise visits from the parent company were never good news. Well, he said, his voice strained. Please excuse me, everyone. Continue enjoying the evening. I'll return shortly. As he hurried toward the exit, my phone buzzed. A text from James Hartwell himself. We're here. Conference room B, time to stop playing games. I typed back, almost. Let's give it 10 more minutes. My wife appeared at my elbow. What just happened? Why would Meridian executives show up unannounced? I kissed her forehead. Just some routine oversight, I imagine. Nothing to worry about. But her eyes were searching mine, and I could see the wheels turning. She knew me too well, knew when I was being carefully evasive. Honey, she said slowly, what exactly do you do in investments? The ballroom's energy had shifted from festive to anxious. Thornton's sudden departure and the mention of unexpected corporate visitors had triggered the survival instincts that lived in every employee of a large organization. People clustered in small groups, speculating in hushed tones about what this surprise visit might mean. My wife pulled me aside, near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. You need to tell me what's going on, she said quietly. That wasn't normal back there. The way you answered those questions about Meridian, that wasn't just research. And now executives show up out of nowhere. Her eyes searched mine. How much do you actually know about my company? Before I could answer, Sarah from my wife's team approached, apologetic. Sorry to interrupt, but I thought you should know. People are saying this might be about restructuring. Thornton's been under scrutiny apparently. There were some complaints filed about his management style and taking credit for others' work. My wife's expression shifted to concern. Complaints? From who? Sarah glanced around nervously. I don't know details, but HR has been asking questions. About the Henderson account specifically, who did what, how decisions were made. She looked at my wife meaningfully. Your name came up a lot. After Sarah left, my wife turned back to me. Did you know about this? I knew Thornton's management style had attracted attention, I admitted carefully. How would you know that? I was saved from answering by a commotion at the ballroom entrance. Thornton had returned, but he wasn't alone. 3 people accompanied him, 2 men and a woman in business attire that screamed executive authority. But more telling was Thornton's body language. The swagger had vanished, replaced by the rigid posture of someone trying desperately to maintain composure while their world collapsed. Everyone, please, Thornton's voice cracked slightly. He cleared his throat. I'd like to introduce some visitors from Meridian Holdings. This is David Foster, Chief Operating Officer, and Margaret Chen, Senior Vice President of Strategic Operations. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The COO and an SVP didn't make surprise appearances at regional office parties for pleasant reasons. Foster stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate silence. Good evening, everyone. I apologize for the intrusion on your celebration. We're here on what was intended to be a routine visit, but our timing seems fortuitous. His eyes scanned the room. We've been conducting a comprehensive review of this division's performance, and there are some matters we need to address. Margaret Chen moved beside him. We've received reports that concern us, specifically regarding leadership practices, credit attribution, and employee treatment. Mr. Thornton has assured us these reports are exaggerated, but we believe in thorough due diligence. Thornton stood rigid, his face a mask of forced calm. As I explained, every organization has disgruntled employees who... We'll discuss this privately, Foster cut him off smoothly. However, since we're here, and since this is a company gathering, perhaps this is an opportunity for transparency. He looked directly at my wife. You're Sarah Brennan's team lead, correct? The Henderson account project manager. My wife stepped forward, surprised. Yes, sir. Though actually, I was the lead technical architect and primary client liaison. The project management was more distributed. Interesting, Chen said, pulling out a tablet. Because in every report submitted to corporate, Mr. Thornton is listed as project lead, with you designated as technical support. The room went deadly quiet. My wife's face flushed. That's not accurate. I developed the core solution, managed the client relationship, and oversaw implementation. Mr. Thornton's involvement was primarily in the final presentation. Exactly what our investigation suggested, Foster said, his tone hardening. He turned to Thornton. This is part of a pattern we've identified. Systematic credit misappropriation, hostile work environment complaints, and significant disparities between your reported contributions and reality. Thornton's composure cracked. This is ridiculous. I've built this division from. You've managed a talented team that succeeded despite your leadership, not because of it, Chen interrupted. We've interviewed 17 employees. The pattern is clear. I felt my wife's hand find mine, squeezing tightly. She was watching her boss's carefully constructed facade crumble in real time. Foster's eyes swept the room again, and this time they landed on me. A slight smile tugged at his lips. Although, I believe we're being rude. We haven't properly acknowledged all the guests present. He walked directly toward me, extending his hand. It's good to see you here, sir. Though I admit I'm surprised you didn't give us more warning. The sir hung in the air like a thunderclap. My wife's head snapped toward me, her expression confused. Around us, people were whispering, trying to understand why a C-level executive was showing deference to a spouse from the periphery table. I wanted an unfiltered perspective, I said, shaking Foster's hand. Sometimes the most honest view comes from being underestimated. Thornton's face had gone from red to ashen. Wait, who are you? Margaret Chen's smile was sharp. Richard, you've been so focused on your performance metrics that you apparently didn't review the corporate communications from last month. Allow me to clarify the organizational structure. She turned to address the room. Meridian Holdings operates as a private equity firm with strategic partners who maintain controlling interests in our investment portfolio. These partners are typically silent. They don't involve themselves in daily operations. They trust divisional leadership to perform. She paused, letting the tension build. However, when concerning patterns emerge, these partners do take interest, particularly when those patterns suggest toxic leadership that threatens long-term value. Her eyes fixed on Thornton. For the past 6 months, one of our senior partners has been specifically reviewing this division's performance. My wife's grip on my hand had become almost painful. I could feel her trembling slightly as the pieces started falling into place. Foster picked up the thread. This partner has a particular interest in ensuring that talent is properly recognized, that credit goes where it's earned, and that our company culture reflects our stated values. He turned to face me fully, which is why we're grateful he chose to attend tonight. It provided valuable first-hand observations. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. Thornton's voice came out as a whisper. Partner, you're a silent partner, I confirmed quietly. Or I was supposed to be. You made that difficult. My wife's hand went slack in mine. She stepped back slightly, her face cycling through shock, confusion, and something that might have been betrayal. You own part of my company. The ballroom felt like it had been frozen in time. Every eye was on me, and I could feel the weight of assumptions shattering around us. My wife's face had gone pale, her expression unreadable, anger, confusion, and hurt competing for dominance. "I think," David Foster said diplomatically, "we should move some of these conversations to a more private setting. Mr. Thornton, you'll come with us. As for everyone else, please continue your evening. This matter doesn't reflect on any of you." He nodded to me. "Sir, if you and your wife could join us in conference room B in, say, 15 minutes. I nodded, but my attention was on my wife, who hadn't moved, hadn't spoken since my identity had been revealed. As the executives led a shell-shocked Thornton away, the ballroom erupted in whispered conversations. Sarah appeared at my wife's side, her expression sympathetic. "Hey, why don't we get you some air?" My wife shook her head slowly, her eyes still locked on mine. "No. We need to talk. Now." We found an empty hallway outside the ballroom, away from the curious stares and speculation. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed, her breathing measured and controlled, the way she always got when processing something overwhelming. 3 years, she finally said. "We've been together for 3 years. Married for 18 months. And you never once mentioned that you're a major investor in my company." "I'm a silent partner," I said quietly. "That's not a technicality. It's the entire point. I don't interfere with operations. I don't influence hiring or promotions. I trust the people we invest in to run their companies." "We." Her voice rose slightly. "You keep saying we. Who else knows about this?" "James and Catherine Hartwell. A few other senior partners. The board of directors." I ran a hand through my hair. "I never wanted you to know because I didn't want it to change anything between us. I didn't want you to question whether your achievements were really yours or whether I had somehow influenced. That's not your decision to make." She pushed off the wall, pacing the small space. "You don't get to decide what I can handle or what information I deserve about my own career. Do you have any idea how this looks? How it feels to discover that my husband has been secretly evaluating my workplace? That he's known about problems I've been struggling with and never said anything?" The pain in her voice cut deep. "I wasn't evaluating you. I was protecting the integrity of what you built. Everything you achieved." "Did I, though?" She laughed bitterly. "That's the question now, isn't it? The Henderson account, my promotion last year, even my initial hiring, how much of that was merit, and how much was because my boyfriend, then fiancé, then husband owned a piece of the company?" "All of it was merit," I said firmly. "I had no involvement in any personnel decisions regarding you. I specifically recused myself from any discussion about your division. Ask Foster, ask the Hartwells, they'll confirm it." She stopped pacing, her eyes searching mine. "But you knew. About Thornton taking credit. About the hostile environment complaints. You knew, and you watched me come home frustrated, stressed, undervalued, and you never said a word. This was the crux of it, the real betrayal. Not the secret itself, but the nights I'd held her while she cried over Thornton's latest credit theft, the dinners where she'd questioned her own competence, the moments of self-doubt that I could have erased with the truth. "If I'd told you," I said carefully, "what would you have done? Would you have confronted Thornton? Reported him yourself? Or would you have doubted every decision you made, wondering if your connection to me was influencing outcomes? Would you have left the company, thrown away everything you'd built, because staying meant living with the knowledge of my involvement?" She closed her eyes. "I don't know. But I deserved the chance to make that choice." "You're right," I admitted. "I was wrong to keep this from you. I thought I was protecting your autonomy, but I was actually taking it away by withholding information." I stepped closer, not touching her but close enough that she could feel my presence. "The investigation into Thornton's behavior? That didn't start because of me. It started because 17 employees filed formal complaints, including your colleague Sarah, who documented every instance of credit theft for the past 2 years. The Henderson account was just the most recent and egregious example." Her eyes opened. "Sarah filed a complaint. Multiple people did. What I did was ensure those complaints were taken seriously and investigated thoroughly, rather than buried by mid-level HR. But the evidence, the decision to act, that came from the employees who were tired of being exploited. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Margaret Chen appeared, her expression professional but sympathetic. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're ready for you both. Though," she looked at my wife, "if you'd prefer to sit this meeting out, that's completely understandable." My wife straightened, and I saw the steel enter her spine, the same determination I'd fallen in love with. "No. I want to understand exactly what's happening and what my husband's role in it has been." The conference room was elegant and understated, with a large window overlooking the city. James Hartwell sat at the head of the table, his silver hair and warm eyes giving him the appearance of everyone's favorite professor. Catherine sat beside him, equally warm but with sharper edges. Thornton was nowhere to be seen. "Thank you for joining us," James said as we entered. "Though I imagine this evening has been quite a shock. Please, sit." My wife remained standing. "I want complete transparency. About my husband's role in this company, about tonight's events, about what happens next. And I want to know if my career has been influenced by his position." Catherine smiled slightly. "Direct. I like that. It's why your work stood out to us long before we knew about your relationship." She pulled out a folder. "Every promotion, every project assignment, every performance review you've received has been documented here. Your husband has never been involved in any discussion about your employment. In fact, we have a strict policy regarding conflicts of interest. He's barred from any decisions affecting your division." "Then how did he know about the complaints against Thornton?" my wife pressed. "Because Thornton's behavior affected multiple divisions," Foster explained. "When patterns emerge across the company, all partners are briefed. Your husband saw that one division experiencing particular problems happened to be yours. He requested detailed information to ensure the investigation was thorough, but he didn't direct it or influence its conclusions." James leaned forward. "Your husband's role in Meridian is unusual. He came to us 12 years ago with a significant capital contribution and a philosophy we found refreshing: invest in people, trust them to perform, intervene only when systems fail. He's been an invaluable partner, but he's also been true to his word about remaining silent. This is actually the first time he's attended any company event, much less revealed his position." My wife finally sat, her rigid posture softening slightly. "Why tonight? Why reveal yourself at my office party?" I met her eyes. "Because Thornton crossed a line. Belittling you in front of your colleagues, touching you inappropriately, claiming your work as his own, not just in reports but publicly, to your face, with your husband standing right there. He was so arrogant, so certain of his untouchability, that he thought he could humiliate both of us without consequence. So this was about ego." Her voice had an edge. "About him disrespecting you." "No," I said firmly. "This was about him disrespecting you. I've watched you excel for 3 years despite toxic leadership. Tonight I saw him try to diminish you in the moment of your triumph, in front of people who should be celebrating your achievements. The investigation was already ongoing, the evidence already compiled. But watching him operate firsthand confirmed everything the complaints described." The silence that followed was heavy with processing. My wife sat perfectly still, her brilliant mind working through implications and consequences, weighing what she'd learned against what she believed about her life. Catherine broke the silence gently. "I understand this is overwhelming. Learning that your spouse has been harboring a significant secret about your professional world, that would shake anyone. But I hope you'll consider the outcome. Thornton's pattern of behavior has been documented and will be addressed. Your work, your genuine contributions, are being properly recognized. And you have a husband who, despite his clumsy execution, was trying to let you succeed on your own merits." "Clumsy is generous," my wife said, but there was the faintest hint of softness in her voice. James stood, buttoning his jacket. "Richard Thornton is being offered 2 options: resign immediately with a severance package and neutral references, or face a formal termination process that will detail his misconduct. Either way, his employment here ends tonight. The Henderson account will be properly credited, and your role will be clearly documented in all corporate materials." He looked at my wife. "We'd like to discuss a leadership position with you, though I understand if you need time to process everything first. My wife's eyes widened. Leadership position. Division head, Foster clarified. Thornton's replacement. You've effectively been doing much of the real work anyway. Your team respects you, your results speak for themselves, and frankly, we should have promoted you months ago. He glanced at me. Your husband has absolutely no say in this decision, for what it's worth. This comes from a unanimous recommendation from the executive committee based purely on performance metrics. My wife hesitated, then straightened. I appreciate the offer, but I need time. Tonight has been a lot. I need to process what I've learned about my husband and my company before I can make any career decisions. Completely understandable, Catherine said warmly. Take the time you need. The position will wait for you. She stood, gathering her things. For what it's worth, I think you two will work this out. Marriage is built on trust, yes, but also on understanding that we're all imperfect people trying our best. Sometimes our best involves spectacular mistakes made with good intentions. After the executives left, my wife and I sat alone in the conference room. The city lights sparkled below us, indifferent to the small human dramas playing out in their glow. I'm so angry with you, she said quietly. You kept something huge from me. You watched me struggle and stayed silent. You made decisions about what I should and shouldn't know, and that's not okay. I know. But I also understand why you did it. In a twisted way, you were trying to give me something precious, the certainty that my success was mine alone. You were trying to let me build my career without the shadow of your influence or the doubt that would come with knowing. She turned to face me. It was misguided and paternalistic and infuriating. But I believe you were trying to do right by me. Relief flooded through me. I should have told you from the beginning. Or at least when we got serious. I was afraid you'd leave, or insist on changing jobs, or let it poison what we had. I might have, she admitted. Or I might have surprised you. You'll never know because you didn't trust me enough to find out. She reached for my hand. If we're going to move forward, and I'm not saying we definitely are, things have to change. No more secrets. No more protecting me from difficult truths. I'm a grown woman who's built a successful career. I can handle reality. You're right. Complete transparency from now on. About business, about everything. She managed a small smile. Well, almost everything. I don't need to know about every boring investment meeting or corporate filing. But the big stuff? The stuff that affects me or us. I need to know. Agreed. We sat in silence for a moment, hands clasped, the anger and hurt still present but no longer overwhelming. So, she said eventually, my husband is a secret millionaire investor who owns pieces of 17 companies. Silent partner, I corrected. And technically yes, though most of that wealth is tied up in investments and... Stop. She laughed, the first genuine laugh of the evening. I don't need the financial breakdown right now. Though we are definitely having that conversation later. Her expression grew more serious. What happens to Thornton? He'll resign. He'll get his severance. And he'll move on to ruin someone else's workplace, probably. That's it. After what he did. Unfortunately, yes. Corporate accountability has limits, and we don't have grounds for anything more severe. But his reputation will follow him. The industry talks. He won't find another senior leadership role easily. She nodded slowly, processing this. And the division head position? You really had nothing to do with that. Nothing. Scout's honor. I actually argued against fast-tracking any leadership changes in your division specifically because I didn't want anyone, including you, to question whether my influence played a role. The executive committee overruled me based on your performance data. Heh. She leaned back, looking at the ceiling. I might have to turn it down anyway. This whole situation, working at a company you partially own, even with safeguards in place, it's going to be complicated. People will always wonder. I'll always wonder. My heart sank, but I nodded. I understand. Whatever you decide, I support it. If you want to find a position elsewhere, I'll help however I can. If you want to stay and prove yourself on your own terms, I'll respect that too. What I want, she said firmly, is to finish enjoying my evening. I want to go back to that ballroom, hold my head high, and celebrate with my team, who apparently filed complaints and supported me even when I didn't know about it. I want to acknowledge their courage and let them see me as someone who doesn't crumble when life gets complicated. She stood, smoothing her dress. Then tomorrow, I want to sleep late, have coffee in bed, and have a very long conversation with my husband about trust, transparency, and what our marriage actually looks like. I stood too, hope flickering to life. That sounds perfect. As we walked back toward the ballroom, she stopped me in the hallway. One more thing. When did you know you were going to reveal everything tonight? When Thornton put his hand on your shoulder for the second time and took credit for your Henderson account work. When I saw the look in your eyes, not just frustration but resignation, like you'd accepted that this was just how things were. In that moment, I realized that protecting your autonomy by staying silent was actually enabling someone else to take it away. She studied my face for a long moment, then stood on her toes and kissed me softly. You're still in trouble. We still have a lot to work through. But thank you for finally trusting me enough to tell the truth, even if it took watching someone disrespect me to get there. I'll spend however long it takes making this right, I promised. I know you will. She took my hand, squeezing it firmly. Now come on. I want to see the look on everyone's faces when we walk back in there together. The ballroom had transformed in our absence. The anxious whispers had evolved into animated conversations. As we entered, heads turned, and a wave of silence rippled outward from our position. Sarah was the first to approach, her expression somewhere between awe and amusement. So, she said to me, I'm guessing you knew about those HR complaints all along. I knew they existed and that they were being taken seriously. I didn't know the specifics or who filed them until tonight. She turned to my wife. For what it's worth, 17 of us filed formal complaints over the past 6 months. We were tired of watching you do brilliant work and seeing Thornton steal credit. The Henderson account was just the final straw. My wife's eyes welled up. You all, for me. For all of us, another colleague chimed in. You weren't the only one he was taking advantage of. But you were the most obvious example, and we figured if we documented your case clearly, it would open the door to investigating everything else. More team members gathered around, and I stepped back, letting my wife have this moment with her colleagues. People who'd fought for her without recognition, who'd taken risks to document truth, who'd proven that integrity and courage still existed in corporate environments. Someone raised a glass. To proper credit where it's due. And to leadership that actually deserves the title. Here, here, the group chorused. My wife laughed, wiping her eyes, and raised her own glass. To good colleagues, to justice delayed but not denied, and to nights that don't go at all as planned. As the evening wound down, we said our goodbyes and made our way to the parking garage. The adrenaline was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. My wife leaned against me in the elevator, her head on my shoulder. Today was supposed to be simple, she murmured. Dress up, smile politely, endure Thornton's ego for a few hours, go home. Sorry about the complications. Don't be. She pulled back to look at me. I'm furious with you for keeping secrets. I'm overwhelmed by everything I learned. I'm anxious about what comes next and how this changes things. She paused. But I'm also grateful. Thornton needed to be stopped, and without your involvement, without that investigation being taken seriously, he might have continued for years. Other people would have suffered. The employees who filed complaints are the real heroes, I said. They took the risk. They did the work. True. But you ensured their voices were heard. She smiled slightly. I guess even silent partners have to speak up sometimes. We drove home through quiet streets, hands clasped between the seats. The luxury apartment building where we lived suddenly felt different. Before tonight, I'd thought of it as our home, a space we'd built together. Now I wondered if she saw it differently, as something my money had provided, another secret influence on her life. "Stop overthinking," she said, reading me like always. "The apartment is fine. I picked it, remember? You wanted that modern place in the city center, and I insisted on this one because I liked the neighborhood." "That's true," I admitted. "See? Not everything is tainted by your secret investor status." She squeezed my hand. "Though we are definitely reviewing our finances tomorrow. I want to understand exactly what we're working with, what's yours, what's ours, all of it. Whatever you want to know, I'll tell you." Inside our apartment, we both kicked off our formal shoes and collapsed on the couch. My wife stared at the ceiling, processing. "Division head," she said quietly. "They want me to be division head. You'd be incredible at it." "Maybe. Or maybe I should start fresh somewhere else. Build something new where there's no question of influence or favoritism. Whatever you decide, I'll support it. Even if it means you working for a competitor." She turned her head to look at me. "Would you really be okay with that?" "I'd prefer you happy and fulfilled at a company I don't invest in over miserable and conflicted at one I do. Your career, your choice. Always." She nodded slowly, then closed her eyes. "Ask me again tomorrow. After coffee. And after you've explained exactly what being a silent partner means and what other secrets you're holding on to." "No other secrets," I promised. "That was the big one." "Good. Because I'm all out of capacity for shocking revelations today." We sat in comfortable silence, the weight of the evening slowly settling into something manageable. Outside our windows, the city continued its endless rhythm, indifferent to the small human dramas that had played out in one hotel ballroom. Tomorrow would bring difficult conversations, complex decisions, and the hard work of rebuilding trust. But tonight, we were together, honest at last, and that felt like enough. "Hey," my wife said, opening one eye. "For what it's worth. The way you handled Thornton's trivia challenge was pretty attractive. Very secret badass energy." I laughed. Yeah. Infuriating, but attractive." She smiled. "Though next time you're planning to dramatically reveal a secret identity, maybe give me a heads up first." "Deal. No more secret reveals without prior approval." "Good." She snuggled closer. "Now be quiet. I'm emotionally exhausted and physically tired, and I want to just exist here for a while without thinking about companies or positions or complicated ethics." I wrapped my arm around her, holding her close, and let the silence embrace us both. Tomorrow would be complicated. But tonight, we had each other, we had truth, and we had the foundation to build something stronger than before. Sometimes the best outcomes emerge from the most uncomfortable revelations. Sometimes love survives deception and grows stronger for having confronted it. And sometimes, the person you underestimate isn't just powerful, they're wise enough to know when power should be revealed and when it should remain silent. As my wife's breathing slowed into sleep, I made a silent promise to the woman in my arms. No more secrets, no more protecting her from difficult truths, no more assumptions about what she could or couldn't handle. She'd proven tonight what I should have always known. She was strong enough to face anything, wise enough to make her own choices, and forgiving enough to give second chances when they were earned. The evening hadn't gone as planned. But perhaps it had gone exactly as it needed to.